Studio. Great to have you with us, Peter Opondo and David Makani as well. So the by-elections happened this past week, and there's been lots of movement as well in terms of possible defections. But let's start with this question. Is this a two-horse race, Peter?
Well, I think the suggestion, at least you can infer that from the outcome, because what is coming out clearly is that Uhuru Kenyatta and TNA have taken over the space of PNU in 2007. So if that pattern remains, then very clearly we could have a two-horse race between TNA and ODM, Raila Odinga, Uhuru Kenyatta.
Okay, David, let me come to you on this. I mean, this may have been predictable. It was only 3 by-elections. Can we make such strong inferences from 3 by-elections?
Well, I agree with you. I think there is too much premium being placed on the results of this by-election. First of all, in some of the areas, it was pretty predictable. I mean, there was no way ODM would have lost in Diwa or TNA in Murang'a. Perhaps the only seat that can be said to have been a factor here is the Kajiado one. And the Kajiado one, I think almost before even the election was done, had been thrown the TNA away because TNA had got the strongest candidate there in the name of Ola Sekuda. So the others were really a gamble, and I think even the results did not disappoint. So I think there's too much being given to the outcome of this election, except that in the for TNA and Uhuru, it has established him as a player on the ground. Okay. So perhaps that is the greatest winner, but it doesn't say much about the rest. Okay,
let's go to the issue of the electorate and the fact that it is clear that the party means nothing to the electorate. They make jokes about politicians jumping ship, and yet they jump with them. What are we saying about the people who are going to decide who the next leaders in this country will be, Peter?
Well, I think the fact is that in this country, we vote on region and ethnic. So there's no surprise there. In fact, like we were just discussing before we went on air, that if Uhuru Kenyatta were to leave TNA today, that will be the end of that political party. So I think what also the by-elections told us is that we have not grown an inch as voters, because the pattern has been replicated. What we are seeing is that we are going to vote. In fact, in 2007, Mwai Kibaki got 49,000 votes in Kajiado North. Raila Odinga got 28,000. Now, here you see, okay, of course, it's not presidential, but here you see the TNA candidate getting 26 and the ODM candidate getting 13. Almost the same, because it's almost half or almost 50% of what the other one got. So I think it's just the same situation, and I don't agree with Makali that we're reading too much. I think it's a reflection of what will happen in the next elections.
Let's come on the same issue, you know, David, just looking at the defections that we're seeing right now. Where is ideology? Where is principle? Where are the manifestos and the vision for the country?
You know, Julie, you might be the only person left standing for issues and manifestos in this election. Because really, the reality is we're looking for ideals which are not being reflected at this time in our politics. I think we have maybe one more election before people can begin looking at issues. And that means you have to take away the strong characters who have dominated our politics, like Raila Odinga, out of the scene. And now, unfortunately, Uhuru is moving into that whole scenario where... Unfortunately, because we are trying to say politics should be depersonalized and de-ethnicized and de-regionalized. But the more we try to move, the more stronger characters are coming to take regions. I mean, you're not going to win an election in Central Province or East, Mount Kenya region unless you are going to be in Uhuru's party. You're not going to win an election in Nyanza unless you're in ODM. You know, that is obvious. The issues are going to be left to the fringe candidates who are trying to cover niche and who don't have the, tribal maps.
That's where I'm heading, Peter, to the fringe candidates. I don't even want to call them that. So let's call them the candidates, the other candidates who are going around the country, investing time and definitely a lot of money in trying to reach Kenyans and say, we can be good leaders. This is what we have to offer. We see Martha Karua, of course, celebrating her birthday. Today is one of them. Peter Kenneth, we've got 16 at the moment. Are we saying that it's all in vain?
No, it's not all in vain. I think what we must accept is that we cannot have an overnight change in the way we do politics in this country. And what we must accept is that these people are making incremental contribution to the way we see politics. And I think as Makali said, maybe it might not happen in 2013, maybe not even 2017, but the fact that people are coming out to speak about issues, that alone you cannot ignore. It's a fact, and we'll get to a point where people will start looking at issues.
See, the problem with our politics is this. What is the difference in issues between, say, Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga and Peter Kenneth or William Ruto for that matter? All these people actually espouse the same issues. There is no ideology of socialism or a capitalist ideology that is distinct between these parties. They're all the same.
But there are track records.
Well,
but there are different track records.
Then it gets back to the personality again. Yeah. Who is more credible among the candidates running? But in terms of issues, in fact, I don't think political parties should waste their time writing manifestos. The manifesto is in the Vision 2030. Everybody is just joking around, playing around the same theory, the same issues which are already in the national grand plan of our development.
But this is a critical issue for this country if we're saying this could end up being a two-horse race. We know where we've come from, and nobody wants to go back there. Already you have a nation starting to get pensive with the Tana River violence, the pulse of the nation was affected. Peter, what would it mean for Kenya to have a two-horse race?
First of all, having a two-horse race is not a bad thing. It happens everywhere. In the US, it's a two-horse race. In the UK, it was also a two-horse race. It's not a bad thing. The tragedy for us as a country is that we are not voting on issues. We are voting on personalities. Now, if it's going to be a two-horse race, to answer your question, if it's going to be a two-horse race, we will have the 2007 election, with the only exception that in the place of Mwai Kibaki, we will have Uhuru Kenyatta. So it will be such a contest in 2013 if it becomes a two-horse race. Now, that's what Raila Odinga wants, and that's why he is insisting that it will be a two-horse race. Of course, the idea is that Kenyans will say, okay, we are tired of voting for a candidate from the Mount Kenya region. Whether that is true or not, we don't know. But I think that a two-horse race will happen.
I don't think it is automatic that a two-horse race will ensue. It depends, as in my view, on what is going to happen to Kalonzo Musyoka and what's going to happen to Ruto. And in my view, these candidates are very solid. Actually, it could happen that it becomes a four-horse race if none of these two candidates are going to join them, because each of them, I think, commands some substantial support, which can take away the whole contest between the two.
The final outcome.
Yeah, or if any of the two sides with the two horses, then it might be a two-horse race, but of a different formation, which I don't think. The only problem in the two-horse race is what motivates the contest. Is it ethnic? Is it based on tribe or issues? Is it based on dominance versus resistance? That kind of mentality. Once we take that out of the contest, I don't think there's anything, as Opondo says, that's fundamentally wrong with having a two-horse race.
Okay, I'm coming to you with another question in just a moment. I think for the Kenyan electorate, a decision needs to be made. Why are you voting? Choose how you vote, but do not attack your neighbor, even in conversation about their choices. And if we do it that way and respect each other's choices, then Kenya is fine. Remember, Kenya Kwanza. We are all here together looking for a better future for our nation. Let me come to you on this other important issue, the Prevention of Terrorism Bill 2012. Just a very quick comment, gentlemen, your thoughts on this issue. The Muslims are concerned that their human rights could be affected if this bill is passed. What are your comments, just very briefly?
I think what is needed is wide consultation so that people are on the same page as in what motivates that law. I think the perception now is that the law is anti-Muslim. That might not be the case, but I think what is required are consultation so that there is a buy-in among all the key stakeholders on what is in the law.
Thanks, Peter.
Yeah, there's always a need for more freedom. The more legislation we have, in my view, is unhealthy for human beings. But again, if there are reservations being raised about the law, they need to be put in the public, and then we can all articulate or discuss them. Because really, a law is going to apply across board, whether you're a Muslim or a Christian or a none of the two.
Right.
So I think it's just being open and discussing the issue to our satisfaction.
Words of wisdom there from our analysts. Well, we have so much more on the way. Who Owns Kenya is coming up, and more stories of the day as well. So thank you so much, gentlemen. Peter and David, always a pleasure, and we'll see you back in the news studio in just a few minutes.